We are now moving from protecting and activating place to the digital tools that help us do it smarter. Dashboards, AI in marketing and distribution, and workforce productivity on the ground. Please put your hands together and welcome back our moderator with the most, Sophie Formica. Joining Sophie for this AI and Digital Futures Spotlight are four brilliant minds leading this evolution. Julian Croft from Tourism and Events Queensland. Julian leads digital and media partnerships and has spearheaded TEQ's major tech transformation, including the relaunch of Queensland.com and the embedding of AI across campaigns. Hannah Robinson, the co-founder of Drop Bear Adventures. Hannah is a sustainability champion on Gari, blending tech, tourism and community to create immersive, eco-conscious experience that honour culture and place. Nikki Golter. Nikki is the owner of 31 The Rocks in Stanthorpe and brings the operator's lens this morning, using technology with intention to enhance guest connection, wellness and environmental stewardship. And finally, Adam Schwab. Adam is the CEO of Luxury Escapes. Adam built one of the world's leading travel brands from the ground up, now turning over $1 billion annually and embracing AI to personalise and, most importantly, scale that luxury travel experience. We will have live question and answers, so please jump on the app if you've got anything that's burning, and we'll get to those once we've heard from all of our speakers this morning. But now, Sophie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tim, and welcome back into the room, everybody. This is such an interesting subject at the moment because it's one that you can't escape. And it's also one that I think comes with it a little bit of fear and intrepidation for those who are navigating it for the first time. And I can remember, it seems like it wasn't that long ago, that I was in a room with many of you at a tourism conference, and we were talking about search engine optimization, and that was the thing that everybody was focused on, and how you found yourself at the top of it. And now that sort of seems to already be completely gazumped by everything we're about to talk about today. So I guess the very first thing to do is have my panel introduce themselves to you and give you a little bit of an understanding of why it is they've been chosen to a degree to be here to answer these questions, because of the real-world applications of what they've found either within their own businesses, their organisations, but how essentially, if you don't look at this as a tool that is required for all operators in this industry, you will be left behind to a degree. So Julian, do you want to kick off on that?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, good morning. I lead the digital strategy for Tourism and Events Queensland. So really focused on how we engage with consumers through digital channels, through both external channels as well as our own properties like Queensland.com. And of course, AI has become a really important part of that piece. So, you know, we're very focused on AI and the transformative opportunities. So yeah, pleasure to be here.
Hannah.
Good morning. I'm owner-operator on Gari, and I've just really had to embrace AI because there's just not enough for me to go around. So I've been on the mission for a couple of years, since those times we shall never speak of, to try and get our company to be more responsive to our guest experience and keep my team on the ground doing what they love.
Nikki?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nikki from the Granite Belt, 31 The Rocks. I guess for myself, I came into this space as a new operator back in early 2024. Previously had been a mental health nurse, very different life, and had a marketing team sitting behind me. So stepping into the tourism world and the huge learning curve that came with that, it was not just the actual operations of a tourism business, but to add to that then, how do I do my marketing? How do I get myself known?
Adam, you've really lived the change, I think, very clearly, but from the first technology adaptation of what we've been using to then having to swing to where it is now to take full advantage of the new tools with Luxury Escapes.
Yeah, we're a very tech-enabled business, so we're a part OTA, part call it tactical style business. So we're using OTA across we're using AI across a lot of our business. I think it's in some ways very overhyped, in some ways very underhyped. So I think it's really hard to understand how does AI relate to you as a business specifically, because there's so many different definitions of it, and there's so many different uses for it, whether it be consumer, be it operational. And I think really understanding how it's relevant to you as a business is really critical, rather than sort of the hype around AI, which feels very overblown in many ways.
I think then that comes back to the tools. So Hannah, can you give us a practical application? When you talk about running a business and being able to plug in to the toolbox something that allows you time back to give that time to another part of your business, what would be a practical application you found?
The biggest one for us has been actually managing our reviews. I'm very lucky that my team do an amazing job and we get some fantastic reviews. But it's very time consuming to respond to those reviews and do it in such a way that I feel I'm giving it all that it deserves. So I'm very grateful for all those people that do write those reviews for us. And there's only so many times you can say thank you. So we have put in a dashboard that literally analyzes all of our reviews and also responds to it. And it's done two things for my team. It's given us more time to actually be on the ground and make sure those reviews are 5-star and spending more time with our guests. And also getting that granular data of what our guests are really enjoying about our experience and what they're not necessarily enjoying. So we've set it to respond to everything that's a 4 and 5-star review automatically. And anything under that, it notifies 5 of us in the team that needs a personal touch. So I think anything with, that needs empathy and creativity needs to still have that human touch. But being able to just automate, 90%, because that's how good my reviews are, thank goodness, is absolutely fantastic. So that's been really good. And then keeping my staff on target to actually read all of the reviews and see what those key things that keep coming up as really positives or negatives that we can address. So it's been really helpful for that.
Julian, how important is it though that when you're using one of those large language models that you're making sure that it is personalised enough so that it doesn't sound and look like it is just a generated piece of response, because that's a turn-off for visitors?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a great question. I think, in our experience, the new generative AI tools have amazing efficiency opportunities. I can call out our content writing area for our website. And we have massive content needs. To stay on top of your SEO and GEO game right now, you have to produce a lot of content and you have to keep your existing content updated. And our amazing editorial team have almost found that almost difficult to keep up with from a human resource point of view. But Gen AI has really added some efficiencies which are incredible. And what it does is it really gets your content to about 80%, and then you need that human touch to take it to 100%. So I don't think it's ever a point that it's going to get you, no, I think there's always going to be that extra human touch, but it's basically sped up our content to about 4 to 1. So what used to take time to take 1 article, we can now write 4 articles.
Before we talk some more about content, and thank you for those who've already jumped on to give questions, please do that through the QR code. I wanted to ask you, Nikki, given that the location that you're in, that for some people in the room, the basics aren't even there. If you don't have Wi-Fi that is reliable, and you don't have Wi-Fi that can also be reliable for when an event comes to town and the town grows from 50 people to 500 people and things automatically shut down, it's very difficult to say, well, we also want you now to put this other impost on the running of your business.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. The reliability in regional Australia of our Wi-Fi system or our broadband system or our satellite system. I, earlier this year, tried to introduce a satellite system to improve the guest experience to access and was told I had too many trees, being a bushland setting, and that I should cut them down. And I couldn't quite understand why I wouldn't. But can you repeat some of that?
No, I just said, for you, that was the practical example. It's like, yes, get a Starlink, sure, get a Starlink. Well, it'll only work if you cut down the trees. That kind of doesn't work for what it is that I'm trying to accomplish here. So it's getting those basic bits of the jigsaw piece and the foundation right before you then have the draw that's required for you to be able to use these tools we're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yes, you've got to have the infrastructure there to be able to do it first. And from there, then you've got to be able to spend the time exploring what actually suits and fits your setting best.
Adam, is there a case too that maybe there is a place for people to start? I think there's just so much clutter in the market and there's so much information that's available to us that if you're building a brand or you're a smaller operator or even a larger one like you still have to make sure that there is an authenticity in the messaging that's being received and that you're building trust with the brand that you have. And I think there is a fear that people think, if I go down this path of losing the human touch, I'll then just be more noise and I won't get the cut through that I need.
Yeah, I think so AI is pretty all-encompassing. We used to call it machine learning a few years ago. So we've gone from machine learning to LLMs. And so we started using machine learning probably 5 or 6 years ago to personalise our communication with our customers. So instead of sending everybody the same email every day, we'll send somebody who's looking for a family holiday to the Gold Coast, something different to something who's looking for a work trip to Brisbane. So we can use essentially machine learning, now what we call AI, to personalised communication by building profiles on people and be able to send specific things. But that's what we use it for our business. It really depends on what's the business you have. And think from a demand side, there's a real question as how will something like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude impact your demand channel. So if you're using Google SEM, so search engine marketing rather than SEO, SEO is pretty much finished regardless of. Google realised you can make a lot more money from SEM than SEO, so let's just downgrade SEO to like the 20th link on the page. So that's already dead. But will LLMs gazump SEM is a real question. So if you get all your business from Google...
I just have to, sorry, just for those in the room who are going, that's a lot of letters.
It's a lot of letters.
Can you just again, just for a bit of 101, so we know the LLM you refer to as the large language model, that is now pretty much all those big players that you talked about have this
Think
ability.
ChatGPT.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you've got the SEO gone, search engine optimization, doesn't make money, that doesn't happen anymore. Now the new landscape is the SEM.
Which is when you pay Google, essentially. So AdWords is what you'd probably think of it as. So historically, you used to be able to get free traffic from Google, which is SEO, called search engine optimization. That's not a thing anymore. And if you do get traffic from SEO, it's probably low quality traffic. So what most businesses now is doing, basically leveraging off search engine marketing. And for a lot of businesses, that's all their marketing. Maybe you use Facebook and Insta and some other channels, but for especially smaller businesses, SEM's pretty easy. It's really cost controllable. The worry is, and this is a non-zero risk, and it's a risk that we think about a lot, is that LLM, so ChatGPT, called the family of ChatGPTs, will make SEM far less relevant. So if you're getting all your customers from Google, there is a risk that you might lose a lot of customers if you're not optimized for LLMs. And ChatGPT probably has to go to an advertising model because it's losing $7 billion a year on $13 billion revenue. So they're probably doomed unless they start advertising. So that's one big worry. And then probably the opportunity for so many businesses, and it's what the other panelists talked about, is how to use AI or sort of agentic AI to make your operation more efficient. And that could be content, it could be, we use it for customer service a lot. So we give people the option to use a chatbot rather than speak to somebody, because some people want to use a chatbot. So that's probably reduced customer service costs by 30 to 40%. So there's sort of two different elements to it.
What's the uptake? Because there'd be people listening going, well, that really flies in the face of what this business is, which is a person-to-person business. It's an experience. It's you saying, take the money that you've earned in your life and come and do something that is going to make you feel, that is going to make you learn, that is going to open your eyes to the world, which is a really personal experience. Yet we're talking about the first touch point of the business being somewhat impersonal if you're talking to a chatbot. Julian?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and I think it comes down to what consumer expectations, and I think it will change over time, because we are seeing massive growth and adoption of these chatbots. You know, 1/3 of Australians are using ChatGPT or Gemini now to plan travel. I mean, that has doubled in the last year. So you can imagine in the next few years, the rate of adoption of these chatbots, that's going to drive, I guess, what kind of experience you should be creating. But the reality is, though, there's no replacement of a human-to-human service, right? We're about that. We're an authentic business, and that's the personalisation element that we can bring, which AI can never do.
Nikki, I also really loved you telling me before we came up on the stage of your experience in the service that you felt you needed and that it was not fit for purpose. So you actually were the ones that went back to them and said, I don't need X, I need Y, and they actually listened. Can you tell us that story?
Absolutely. A lot of the programs or platforms that are on offer, whilst there's a great opportunity to start off with a free trial, once you're in there and utilising their services, what you come to realise is that what they're offering is actually for medium to larger businesses. And as a small business in Stanthorpe, which is only 5 cabins, their expectation is that you might get 150 to 500 phone calls a month, and therefore they're going to price it based on that. I don't get that many phone calls a month. So it was really important for me to speak to them and say, okay, well, that's great. I'm loving the service, but I'm finding that it's not actually purpose-built for what I need. And so having that conversation with them and then negotiating, and I was very fortunate that they were able to go back and sit down and say, well, yeah, there are actually smaller businesses in smaller towns, regional areas that don't need this bigger option. And they did. They agreed to reduce their price and negotiate that with me. So it's something I'll continue with.
Before we get to questions, Hannah, just finally to you for this conversation. Was it intimidating? How quickly did you have to learn? Because you sort of said it was a steep learning curve, but now that you've incorporated it into the business, you see great benefits because it's given you time back as a productivity measure.
Yeah, I have to say I was really reluctant. I'm a workaholic, so I don't mind working too much, but after COVID, I think it took about 10 years more out of me than I had. And my husband and I started our business. We love being on the ground. I still guide my tours. I still host. I love being in the kitchen with my guests. And I was finding as my business was growing that I was spending less and less time doing what I actually started my business to do. So it was very intimidating to start with, and I was very, very skeptical, especially around that, Julian, like you talk about, that sort of losing the personal touch. I am somebody who's contactable 14 hours a day. If someone calls me at 11 o'clock at night and they're in the UK, I'll take the phone call. I love talking with people, and I love offering a great experience. And I didn't want to lose that. But what it has done is, I think, has put a hold on me getting a bit too jaded from the very repetitive questions that we all get asked every single day, that just start to go, well, if you'd read the website, you'd know the pickup was at 7 o'clock. I also emailed it to you, and I sent you a text message, but you're still calling me at 11 o'clock at night the night before your tour. So it's completely eliminated that for me now, and I am back on the ground, spending time with my team, spending time with my guests, being able to feel that I can go out on a 3-day tour and be with my guests, and not feel really guilty that there's all these other things I should be doing. It's made me so much more efficient as a manager and also as a marketer, and I just actually feel like it's just what I needed to, like I say, put a hold on that feeling jaded and get back in love with what I do.
Let's get to some questions from the floor. Sarah asking, with Google AI now drawing and interpreting answers from websites, what are the risks to business in LLMs getting the context wrong and misleading? Adam, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think it very much depends on what you're using the LLM for. I presume this question is content driven, so maybe you're trying to Sarah's earlier point, maybe it's a Q&A on your website that you're trying to help customers with. I think there's a couple of things. One is there's different LLMs, so different, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Gemini, whether it's Claude, whether it's Perplexity, they all have different sort of strengths and weaknesses. So I love Perplexity, which references the content, so you can click on the reference and sort of double check it, which is really helpful. Another thing you can do is use multiple LLMs to get one LLM, so get ChatGPT to check Gemini's response, or get two LLMs to check another's response. So there's ways to have LLMs working in tandem because the hallucination argument is a really strong one, and the question's absolutely right, because you don't want to cause more problems than you're solving giving wrong answers, which is pretty demoralising.
Yep.
With a customer.
And hard to undo. And then goes to Andre's question, not dissimilar. And Julian, I think this is really one for you, because we see that search is shifting from the traditional website visits to AI-driven answers and to the large language model interfaces. So how can operators still measure their digital success by how many people visit the websites, or how effectively the information is reaching people wherever they are, when we know that data and those analytics can be so important to help inform decisions that you'll make?
Yeah, it is actually a really, really good question, and it is something I think that all marketers and all companies need to start thinking about. I think traditional digital measurements like website visits are still going to be important, but they're not going to be the whole story moving forward, because what we're seeing already is a lot of that engagement that used to happen on websites is now happening in other environments, like ChatGPT, like Gemini, or even in Google. 60% of Google users are no longer clicking through to websites. So they're asking a question in Google, they're getting their answer, and then they're going on to something else. So if you're not starting to try and measure your impact in those places, then you're really missing out on seeing the full impact. And that's just going to continue. It's probably going to accelerate. So I think it's not too late, though. We're at the beginning still. So I think that's the message with all of this stuff. Like, it seems very overwhelming, but the reality is we're still at the beginning of AI. So if you haven't jumped into it yet, now's the time, but there's a long road ahead.
And we haven't even really talked about algorithms and how that can then skew what it is that you're being fed beyond what it is that you search for or what the first search result might be. Lynn is asking Hannah a question about the tool that you're using for those review responses that you outlined. She says, how do you ensure authenticity in the answers if they're being generated by artificial intelligence?
So I use a tool called Dashboards, and I think it's really important when you do choose the tool because, like you say, this is such a new space that you're choosing an operator that is growing as well, and it's not this is a set and forget. So we started using it. So my name's Hannah. It's spelled H-A-N-A, the most simply confusing way to spell Hannah. I think my mum was worried I wouldn't be able to spell or something. And it was replying to the reviews with H-A-N-A-H. So I actually fed this back to the company that I was working with, and I said, look, I want this to make sure it's authentic. So there was they built in the large language model that it will recognize the name and respond to it. It reads all my previous review responses. It reads my entire website. And to the point now, my team are like, wow, you're really on top of the reviews, Hannah. And I'm like, I haven't actually told them that I don't do it. So I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm so on top of it. So I think it's really important. I didn't want to lose that. So I think feeding back is really important. Whoever you're working with, wherever you take this on with AI, feedback from us as operators is so valuable.
It gets the opportunity, if you're engaging with it, to literally learn the way that you speak and then answers in that same way. And I imagine in the first instance, in those first reviews, you still made sure you read every one of them and you were happy with the response.
For months.
Yeah. We've spoken a lot today about nature-based tourism. Just in that last presentation, we talk about ecotourism and wanting to be in the forefront of that. It also touches on the great opportunity we have in the Indigenous tourism space. So we can't have this conversation without also talking about the sustainability arm of it and the risks to businesses of not being fussy about what they're using and what businesses they engage with. Would anybody like to make a comment about whether or not they've actually looked into the practices of the businesses that they've worked with? We know that this is a massive draw on energy, and it will continue to be so.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one to start with. I think it's something that a lot of people don't realise. They just assume AI is sitting in the cloud somewhere there and it just draws information magically from it. But AI is data warehouses all over the place that has significant impact upon the resources of our environment. So a really important part for me and for tourism as we go into greater expectations for every single one of us to have a sustainability plan, if not be ecotourists, then is for us to understand who we're partnering with in our AI endeavours. And some of that, it doesn't have to be that they have to be, they have to be responsible, sustainably responsible. And most companies and platforms that you go and look at, if you look at the company behind it, you'll be able to assess whether they have a action plan, sustainable action plan, or what they're doing in regards to their environmental responsibilities.
I believe I'm out of time because all of the numbers are red and round. Very quickly, Adam, could you just give us the first step that people might take when they leave and they go back and they assess what the tools are they have, what they might need to be considering moving forward?
I think if you haven't used the LLMs, just go and have a play around. Perplexity is a really great one for getting information. Claude's a great one for writing and for coding, if you like coding. GPT is a sort of great all-round LLM. And just I think the big key to using LLM is understanding how to prompt it. That's the biggest challenge. And whether you do a sort of online course or just play around with getting better and better with prompting, but ultimately, as Scott Galloway says, you're probably not going to lose your job to AI. You're probably going to lose your job to someone who understands AI. So it's just getting understanding of how to use it and play around and get more and more used to just trial and error.
Yeah, I'm really glad you threw that in because that's 100% spot on. This is another tool, as every other tool has been before us. The people who won't be affected by it are the ones who can incorporate the tool into their businesses, not necessarily to replace somebody, but to allow that person to focus on some other area of the business. Julian, do you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, look, I think my final comment is just, roll up your sleeves and have a go with this technology if you're not already. Like, it is an amazing piece of technology. Don't sit there looking at a blank piece of paper if you're trying to come up with an idea for a social post or a job description. Just get involved and give it a go.
The next panel should be, are brochures dead? I don't know. Thank you very much, everybody. Put your hands together for our panel today. Thanks, Tim.